and I am committed to addressing the issues identified by the committee that remain a concern. In light of the fact that these techniques were abandoned 7 years ago, however, my fervent hope is that we can put aside this debate and move forward to focus on issues that are relevant to our current national security challenges.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We are privileged to be joined once again by Alberto Gonzales, former U.S. Attorney General, former counsel to President George W. Bush, and Dean at Belmont University College of Law. Mr. Attorney General, thank you, sir.
It's good to be back with you.
Well, I appreciate that. Okay, and of course, in addition to being Attorney General from, I believe, 05 to 07, you were at the time of the John Yoo, and we just had John on yesterday for a wonderful interview. You were counsel to the president, and you were involved in this. The CIA, I think you testified in 05 that the CIA requested permission to undertake certain techniques, and it was Rumsfeld, I guess, who eventually signed off on 17 of those techniques. Am I correct?
No, that's not correct.
Okay.
Both the CIA and DOD began a process of looking at enhanced techniques beyond the Army Field Manual.
Right.
And Don Rumsfeld, because of pushback primarily from the JAGs, eventually sort of abandoned that effort with respect to DOD. With respect to the CIA, Tenet came to the National Security Council principles and basically said, this is in 2002, that we had Abu Zubaydah. We believed he had information about another imminent threat, and he wanted permission to go beyond the Army Field Manual, and that began a debate or discussion amongst, certainly between CIA and DOJ, in terms of what could the CIA do that would be consistent with the torture statute. And obviously, because I was White House counsel, I was involved in those discussions. But at the end of the day, it really is a question of what the Department of Justice, particularly the Office of Legal Counsel, says is permissible. And so the department, over the course of several years, issued 6 separate opinions with respect to these techniques, authored by 3 different lawyers, and of course supported by 3 different attorneys general, and all saying that if these enhanced techniques were conducted a certain way, with specific safeguards provided for in the opinions, then the CIA actions would be consistent, not in violation of the torture statute. Now, we knew this would nonetheless be controversial whenever they become public, and everyone, you work in government, you understand fully that at some point it's all going to become public. Everything that you do, everything that you write is going to become public. And fortunately, we worked with a group of individuals that manned up. They understood that, and nonetheless, they did their job and doing their very best in providing legal advice. The lawyers did, and lawyers are paid to disagree, and so I have no problem with lawyers criticizing other lawyers, saying, well, how could you guys have reached that conclusion, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we did, and under the circumstances, I think it was the right decision. And so what I take offense is that people being critical of the lawyers, thinking that they facilitated torture. Quite the contrary, President Bush was clear in his directive that we would not engage in torture, and the role of the lawyers was to ensure that the conduct of the CIA was consistent with the torture statute.
And you talk about under the circumstances, and that's really the key. Because to hear the director of the CIA yesterday describe the situation, and to hear others describe the situation, taking us back to that time, even Tenet back in 07 when he gave an interview to CBS, we didn't know what was next. We had all kinds of reports of nukes in New York, buildings being threatened, and planes going to crash again. And we were trying to get, as a government, to the bottom of what was actually real and not real.
Well, we quickly realized that there was a lot we didn't know about the threat against the United States, and that the information became the most valuable currency, and we needed to get that information. But let me emphasize to your listeners that President Bush was very clear. We would not engage in torture. And so how can we gather the information consistent with the laws? And the lawyers worked hard to try to get it right. And I understand that there may be some who disagree with where the lawyers came out, but we did the very best we could. When I say we, primarily I'm talking about the Department of Justice and OOC at Justice in terms of providing specific guidelines. Now, whether or not the CIA.
Mr. Attorney General, hold it right there. We'll pick up right
Okay.
there when we come back. We're talking to former Attorney General Alberto Gonzales on Newsmax Television. Don't go away. All right, we're back with former Attorney General of the United States, Alberto Gonzales. Mr. Attorney General, before we left, you were making a point. We were talking about the time frame involved here, the decisions being made at that time back after we were attacked.
Well, I was going to complete my thoughts that we provided a guidance, and it was up to the CIA to comply with that guidance. As I started hearing about some of the items in the report, I became troubled because some of those things, some of what was being referenced, appeared beyond the guidance. Yesterday, CIA Director John Brennan confirmed that there were some activities that went beyond the guidance, and that, of course, was inappropriate. And I think that's a very important point to understand. And
do you have any idea how rampant that was, or are these just exceptions that are being, focused on and blown up by the committee and now the media?
Well, perhaps. Part of the problem that I have, the difficulty that I have, is I don't know how much trust to put in the report, and that it truly is a one-sided report, a report joined only by the Democrats. And I've got some other issues of the fact that they did not interview key players in this, did not interview the head of the interrogations program for the CIA or any of the station chiefs, and I think that was a big mistake. And when you have a one-sided report, you don't know whether information is placed out of context and not in the proper text.
Right.
You don't know what evidence and what facts have been omitted that actually could have been very beneficial or helpful to the agency. And so I would encourage people to look at the report with a grain of salt in terms of I don't know how reliable the report is, or I don't know how reliable all the facts are. When I hear the reports conclude that the techniques, the enhanced techniques, were not effective, and then I see, I worked with George Tenet, and I worked with Porter Goss and Mike Hayden, and they've testified under oath that they were effective. These are honorable men, and they've testified under oath that they were effective. And so the report is basically saying that they perjured themselves. And quite frankly, until I see something a lot more convincing, a lot more definitive, I've got to stand behind the sworn testimony of the former CIA directors. And this is just one example of why I've got, I look upon the report from the Democrat intel senators, I look at it with a great deal of suspicion.
Yeah, and Dick Cheney was right to the point, as he tends to be. He said that the report, in his view, was full of crap.
Well, you're right. Vice President Cheney is not a man of mince words, and so obviously he felt that the report was not one that could be relied upon or trusted. And as I said, I've got some concerns as well, and people should just kind of stand back and. I believe it is appropriate to look at how the United States government has executed the war on terror. And I think we need an impartial, bipartisan approach in doing so. I do not believe this report does that, and that's the problem that I have with this report.
And what's worse, Mr. Attorney General, if some of these things did take place, or the whole program, which has since been discontinued by this president, and now this president has gone much further on drones, killing people without trial, without taking them in, without talking to them. There's collateral damage very often. Is that, which in your view is worse?
Well, obviously people have different views about that. It seems to me that what's more harmful to this country are the drone attacks, and that to the extent that waterboarding may hurt our standing in the world community, I think the way that the drone program is being operated does equal damage. But even more so, when you kill, a high-level operative, you lose the opportunity to gather up intelligence, and that's detrimental to our efforts.
Mr. Attorney General, have a very Merry Christmas. Thank you so much for all you do for us, and look forward to talking to you the next time, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Alberto Gonzales, ladies and gentlemen, now Dean at Belmont University College of Law, former Attorney General of the United States, and former counsel to President George W. Bush. We're coming back with Gimme 5. Don't miss it.